I had this video all scripted out with all different kinds of shots, and it was going to be a better video. But then I discovered that this whole kit that I ordered, all along, none of the mics have been working with the camera. So all along I've been using the camera mic anyway. So I've got to do this whole return thing, and that's going to take a while. But I really wanted to get this video out because it's really important to me. Within a few days, I'm going to be on the East Coast and wrapped up in the live cohort courses that I'm taking, and I won't, I'll be too busy. I'll be too busy for you people. So I wanted to go ahead and record this. Some of what I'm going to say in this video, a good part of it is a summary of Roz's class. Roz is the director of the Institute of Sexuality, Education, and Enlightenment. And I'm not even going to try and say her name right now because I'm not sure, her last name right now, because I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So in the class that I finished last spring, erotophobia is defined as powerful, irrational fears about our own sexuality and that of others. And that comes from a book by John Ince called The Politics of Lust, which I just ordered and I haven't had a chance to read yet. Okay, had to go across the house to get my glasses. People are really freaked out by nudity. Do you remember like the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction and how crazy that was? And then just breastfeeding, because you've seen me go off about the whole breastfeeding pods thing. In this class, Roz mentions that up to 12,000 women a year are arrested for breastfeeding in public. And this must have been a few years ago, and I wasn't able to find where that statistic came from. But I did find an article, a USA Today article, that, this is really good news, because 2 years ago, in fact, 2 years ago on the day that I was writing this script, 2 years ago, it became legal for women to breastfeed their babies in public all over the United States. Cheers. We're all embarrassed to even say or hear the word masturbation. I mean, do you remember when Bill Clinton fired Jocelyn Elders? That Bill Clinton, that same one, for her belief that sexually active children should have access to condoms and that masturbation should be taught. I also found a Newsweek article that makes reference to a documentary called Sticky, a self-love story, which I totally have to see that documentary now. But Elders defends her position in this documentary. And to quote her, she says, "I felt it would reduce unintended pregnancy and reduce disease," she says. She was saying that school children should be taught that masturbation is natural and common, not that they should be taught how to do it, she later clarified. So this is a quote from the Newsweek article. So, the vast majority of people are sexual beings, including children and including senior citizens. It's not everyone. There are some people that are asexual, and this freaks us out. The truth is that our discomfort with it doesn't change the fact that sexual sensations, feelings, and urges are part of our biology. There's nothing innately evil or wrong about sex. Okay, so brace yourselves for this. This is another thing I learned in the child and adolescent sexual development class, that fetuses have been documented stimulating their genitals in the womb. Little boys have been shown to have erections. And of course, children start really eagerly getting to know their bodies as soon as they discover that they have a separate one that's their very own body. This includes a kind of exploration around the sensation of their genitals, and this is normal and good. And I'm here to tell you that people 55 and older can have the best sex of their lives, as long as they're kind of managing the changes that happen as they get older, their health issues, and as long as they're not kind of weighed down by shame around sexuality. This is the case because as older adults, we are in this awesome position of having had years of experience behind us that hopefully teach us what we like and what we don't like, and hopefully give us the practice that we need to communicate our preferences. So if sex is so natural and it's such a good thing, why are people so freaked out by it? An individual programming can begin with an adult's response to something that they see a child doing, like taking off their clothes and playing around in the sand, or taking off their clothes and playing with other children. The adult may see this and actually like scold a child and kind of freak out about it, like, what are you doing? Don't take your clothes off. And a child, especially a very young child, is really tied into their parents' emotions and their responses, and they see this anxious parental response, and they think, oh my God, something dangerous is happening, something bad is happening. Because of the emotional response, this is processed by the child's limbic system within the brain. And the limbic system processes information really, really rapidly, and these memories have intense emotions attached to them, and are much more vivid and hardwired in our brains, and in our brains and our body, because of the hormones that are released during stressful events. This quote is from the University of Queensland in Australia. Shout out to my Aussie friend Susan. Which actually, it would be interesting to hear from you and to see kind of how you perceive the difference between the way that people in the United States deal with sexuality and the people in your chosen country of Australia to deal with it. So anyway, from the University of Queensland in Australia, scientists say that this happens because of the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system, which brain imaging studies have shown is activated by emotional events. The amygdala boosts memory encoding by enhancing attention and perception, and can help memory retention by triggering the release of stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol to boost arousal. So then the child's neocortex absorbs and analyzes all this information, and the neocortex processes information much more slowly. So thus, the long-term message is processed, and the child concludes that nudity can hurt people. And a fear of nudity is born, all from this little freak out because they were playing in the sand. And this playing in the sand nude. So this same storyline can unfold with anything, and usually it's triggered by anything sexual, though, in our culture, of course. But then the last couple of years, I've actually had a conversation with a millennial who was stating that they also felt discomfort around the topic of sexuality, and having been raised by a relatively sex positive parent, they were kind of confused about where that reticence came from. And Roz does address that in the class the erotophobia class that I took. She says that erotophobia and erotophilia are not just individual responses, and to quote her, do not mistake an individual's erotophobia or erotophilia as an isolated thing. It is not. It is a cultural phenomenon, because our culture feeds us these insane mixed messages about sex constantly. Sluts and players are disgusting, but everybody wants them. Sex is a dirty thing that you should save for somebody that you deeply love. Sex is a deeply sacred spiritual thing, but too much, too early, or the wrong kind is disgusting, immoral, or sinful. So, those are crazy-making messages, and all of that is directly from the workshop that I took from Roz. And there's so much more information that she covered in that class, and, these few points that I've, quoted her on are really just from, the first 2 pages of my notes. So, why do I care so much about this, you ask? You may be asking yourself, why do I care? I care because I really firmly believe that shame around sexuality is used to oppress people. All people, but especially women. Also because confidence about one's body and sexuality is a powerful and positive force, not only in the bedroom, but, that spreads throughout the rest of your life. Sexual energy is creative energy, and it can be channeled in many different directions. Sex positive people are happier, healthier, more compassionate, and less judgmental. Doesn't that sound nice? I see the overall lack of response to any of, when I post something online that has anything to do with sex, I hear crickets, crickets, crickets. And intellectually, I know this isn't about me, but emotionally, I gotta confess that it kind of gets under my skin, because like everybody, I long to be heard and understood. So I'm going to give you an example of a loving, supportive, sex-positive response to, someone's sexuality. So some of you know that I made money as a stripper in my 20s. I did it for money, but it was also a really healing experience for me, which, and those reasons, I can go into it another time. I think it's an important point too. It was also a creative act for me. Like, I put a lot of energy into the art of the striptease, and this was before burlesque had kind of made its comeback and made its way back into polite society. Stripping was also a feminist act for me, because I believe that women's sexuality is one of the most powerful forces on this planet. It's tied up in our very creation as human beings, and I think this is why this is one of the reasons that our culture works so hard to shame women, for dancing like they have diamonds between their thighs. To paraphrase Maya Angelou from her poem "Still I Rise." So the point is, I was stripping, and most people knew that this was how I was making money while I was apprenticing as a midwife, but it was also not openly talked about outside that circle of kind of stripper friends. However, my Uncle Paul was always like really, really supportive of me in everything that I did. He showed interest and respect for me in all aspects of my life. And one evening, he and his wife Joanne actually came to the Red Rose on Ben White Boulevard to see me perform. I could see them out in the audience smiling in appreciation for my creative expression. And they even came up to the stage to give me a tip. The energy was not inappropriate, it was not lascivious, it was supportive energy. They weren't squirming at my nakedness, and they were not appalled at the sexual nature of what I was doing. It was almost as though like they were looking at that, little girl who couldn't keep her clothes on as she ran around in the sand. They were seeing me, and they were accepting me as I was in that moment, as a whole person. They were acknowledging me as a whole and creative person, and I love them for that. And I miss them both very much. I am putting myself out there to talk about these issues because I believe that erotophobia is a dangerous force, and I'm going to do and say what I can to chip away at it. I'm in an age where I really don't give a shit what people think about me. However, it's scary, and the kind of support that Paul offered me is still something I long for from my family and friends. I understand that I mostly get radio silence because overall people are uncomfortable talking or hearing about sex. Even my awesomely cool family and friends. My family, we can play a wickedly irreverent game of Cards Against Humanity. We're fine with that. But, any kind of conversation around sex, even in my family, can be any serious conversation, can really feel awkward, because we all have internalized fear and shame around sexuality, even me. It takes a tremendous amount of strength to look within and see where the negativity is coming from. And most people just don't want to put the effort into, they just don't want to put the effort into that. It brings up dark or sad memories, and it's too painful, and it's too scary. I know. I believe wholeheartedly that if we find the courage to face and disarm the discomfort that obfuscates our sexual nature, we will feel more energetic, we'll feel healthier, happier, and more confident, and we will become more powerful people who are less likely to be victimized. And as a bonus, we might just have more satisfying sex. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs?